welcome to Session Time at Reel to Reel Studios. I'm Steve Rawls, and today's episode is an overview of mastering. We master music not only that has been recorded and mixed here at Reel to Reel, but we also master for clients such as record labels, other studios, including commercial studios, artist studios, and home studios. So what is mastering? Well, mastering is the process where we take your final mix and we optimize it for playback on a variety of systems based on your intended format. So if you want this on vinyl or CD or iTunes, there are different steps in the mastering process we'll go through to make sure that playback on that format is optimized. It's really important for you to communicate to the mastering engineer that this is destined for iTunes, or this is destined for CD, or this is destined for vinyl, particularly vinyl. If you send a typical rock or pop song or hip hop rap song mastered for CD to a vinyl pressing facility, you're not going to get very good results. There are many considerations for vinyl, and we'll get into that in more detail in an actual episode where we master a song. So again, you need to master because it takes your music and optimizes the playback for small speakers, large speakers, cars with subwoofers. That's the point of mastering. So what happens in mastering? How do we achieve that optimization? Corrective equalization as needed, compression, limiting, both peak and brick wall limiting at times, editing. We may have to edit out ticks and pops the client may or may not have known existed in the material. We obviously make sure if it's a multi-song project that the songs are all level, that you're not constantly reaching to turn up or turn down every time a new song comes on. We shape fade-ins and fade-outs. Sometimes clients actually have us edit content out of their songs. If they decide their mix is too long, they may tell us shorten it by doing this. The final step of mastering after the audio is done is sequencing the song, putting it in the correct order. Most times the artist supplies that information to us, and we just work with the client to determine how much pause they want between track 1, 2, 3. Do you want them to crossfade seamlessly? So that's the final step called sequencing. One of the other questions we get is, why can't I do this mastering in my home studio or my project studios? Well, mastering requires a critical listening environment. There's hardware and or software tools involved in the mastering process. The results depend heavily on the accuracy of your speakers and the acoustical environment those speakers are in, as well as the engineer, of course. Most artists and home studios don't have the speakers or the listening environment, and many times don't have the tools to really do a proper job of mastering. How loud is loud? People many times think, I want it loud so that if it plays on the radio, it's going to jump out. Here's the problem with that thought process. Compressors that are used at radio stations are really used to tame plosive, T's and P's that the DJ says when he's speaking in his mic. So they react to peak transients that are over a certain level. So if you make your master really hot so that it jumps out on the radio, then that compressor at the radio station is going to say this whole track is a peak, and it's going to push it down. So what's going to happen is you're going to get less volume on the radio because you sent them too loud of a master. How loud is loud? In rock and pop, I really seldom like going below 9 dB of dynamic range. That allows life to stay in there, but still keeps it to commercial volume standards. I have some clients who want it louder, and I'll gladly accommodate them. I just am not one who believes that louder is better. As we get into another episode where we actually master a song, you'll see that one of the things we do in mastering is we set a compare volume, so that as we're A-Bing the mix versus what we're doing to it, we don't hear that volume difference because the ears are often fooled that louder is better. That is not the case. So we will master at a compare level, and once we're happy with the optimization we've done for that sound, then we'll turn the compare level off so we can actually hear the volume difference we are making, make sure it's to standards, and then print the master. So what do I need to supply to the mastering facility when I'm ready to master my music? We often ask clients to send us their mixes in advance of the mastering session just so we can preview it and make sure there's no surprises. There's nothing worse than scheduling a mastering session only to find out that there's a problem in the mix, or and we really need a different mix before we master. One of the most common problems we have is, because the home or the artist studio wants their mix to be as loud as the commercially released CDs that they're also listening to, they'll put a stereo limiter or compressor on the bus of their workstation when they print the mix. It really limits what a mastering engineer can do, no matter who the mastering engineer is. Dynamic range is where we are able to use the optimization, or able to provide the optimization of your sound files. So if what you sent us has no dynamic range in it to begin with, we are really limited in the sound sculpting and shaping that we can do. As far as the kind of files to send us, WAV files, AIF files, Sound Designer files are all great. Send them in the original format. If you recorded your session at 2496 or 2448, send us that format. Sometimes clients have nothing but an audio CD. If they worked at another studio, the audio CD may be the only thing they've got. We certainly can master from an audio CD, but we do prefer a higher res if a higher resolution was available. Do not send us MP3s and AACs. Sometimes clients, that's all they have, again, and we have to do it. But when you're dealing with a lossy data compression format like that, you really need higher resolution information to provide good mastering facility. We also can master stems versus mixes. And what I mean by that is, in most cases, the vast majority of cases, we master from a stereo mix. Some clients, and it is true that when you master, the loud stuff gets pushed back and the soft stuff gets brought up. Sometimes clients feel like their vocals get a little bit hidden in that process. So people who are really concerned about that, they may send us a track that is nothing but the music for the track, and then another stem or track that's the vocals. So as we master, we have independent control over the volume. If we believe the mastering process is pushing that vocal back too much, we can push it up some. Sometimes we've mastered up to 4 stems, drums on a stem, bass on a stem, the rest of the music on a 3rd stem, and vocals on a 4th stem. Again, it's important to know if your mastering facility can support that, and generally there is a higher charge for mastering from stems versus a single stereo mix. Check with your mastering facility. We do offer all of those options at Reel2Reel. So, song sequencing. If you're sequencing a CD of multiple songs, then try to avoid having all of your songs of the same key put together. You may or may not want to group all of your up-tempo and down-tempo stuff together. That's up to you. There's no right or wrong. It's art. If you're going to vinyl, one consideration to make is the grooves on a vinyl record get smaller or narrower as you get towards the inner part of that disc. Songs that you want to be louder and have more bass content should sit on the outer edges of that vinyl, and lighter, less bass heavy content should sit on the inside. So there's a balance there you have to do between ideal sequence from a song order standpoint versus the delivery format ideal circumstance. You want to be sure, if you're going to vinyl, that your mastering engineer, if you can tell him who is going to be your lathe engineer, and that mastering engineer can talk to your lathe engineer and make sure they're on the same page about what's intended. Try to avoid putting too much information on vinyl. Vinyl really is optimized at about 20-22 minutes per side. So 40-44 minutes of audio. If you have a 70-minute CD and you want to get that put on vinyl, you most definitely should consider dropping some of the content on vinyl or completely doing a different master for vinyl, which is always recommended. It's mandatory if you're anywhere trying to exceed 50 minutes or so on a CD. ISRC codes, UPC codes, CD text. ISRC codes are the serial number that identifies each song on your release. The UPC code identifies the release itself. So the album has a single UPC, but each song has its own ISRC code. Think of it as a serial number for the song. You should provide that information to your mastering facility. They should encode it in your master on the CD. Obviously, there's no way to encode that on vinyl, but you should get back a list that tells them what those codes are. If it's a CD, it should be encoded on the CD. On CD, On CDs, you can also encode CD text, artist name, song name, disc name, that type of thing. That is not the same information you see when you put your CD in iTunes or Windows Media Player. That information is pulled from a database. So your mastering facility may put CD text on your CD, but that does not mean it's going to appear in iTunes. You must submit it to those databases using Windows Media or iTunes to make sure that the rest of the world sees your track list. Your mastering facility may do that for you, or you may need to do it on your own. So finally, what do I get back from the mastering process as a customer? Well, it depends on the final format, delivery format you requested, obviously. But if we're giving you a CD back, we're going to give you a safety copy. So if something happens to one, you have another copy. We also, unless a client tells us not to, archive our clients' work here. So even if you lose your copies or they're both damaged, you can call us 3 years later and we can pull it up from our archive and create another master. Many times today, we're not really even shipping CDs. We create what's called a DDP. And that DDP is a single file that we can upload to a server, send you a link to download it. It gives you a Mac and a PC compatible program that allows you to launch that program. It shows you all the tracks on your CD, all the ISRC codes and UPCs that you either supplied us or we provided you. The CD text, it allows you to play that CD. You'll hear the time in between the tracks. You can burn a CD. It even allows you to export WAV files from each track on that single file. So again, in the future, we're going to do an episode where we master a song, start to finish, and we'll go into detail a lot more on what you've heard today. This is just an overview of what is mastering, what do you do, why can't I do it myself, what do you need, and what do I get out of the process. For Session Time at Reel to Reel Studios, I'm Steve Rawls. Thank you very much.